Join our WhatsApp group to get daily latest updates. It's totally free.
Part 1.
You have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now the full test will begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, as the recording is not played twice. Listen carefully to the conversation and answer questions 1 to 6.
Good morning, my name is Mrs. Davis. I was wondering if this is the place to ask about the summer sports camp.
It is, madam. My name's Philip, and I can answer any questions you might have.
I have a 12-year-old boy called Dominic, and he always gets bored in the summer holidays. I need to keep him busy.
We have a group for 11 to 13-year-olds, so that should be fine.
Will Dominic be alright playing with boys a year older than him?
Oh yes. We find that at that age group, the students haven't usually outgrown each other, so they can play sport together without any problems.
So, who does the coaching of the sports?
We are a very professional outfit. The management are all ex-sports professionals, and our instructors are usually sports science students.
Are the students on their own with the children?
No. They're always supervised by more experienced coaches. Everyone receives an enhanced police check for working with children, and we run our own training at the start of the summer. All our staff are ready and trained for groups of children.
What if there are any injuries?
All our instructors and coaches are qualified in first aid. There is also the hospital just round the corner if there's a bad injury. It's good to have that nearby, but we haven't had to go there yet.
I know it's unlikely, but it's always possible with that many children running around playing sport.
I quite agree.
Now, I want to ask about clothing. I suppose I should make sure Dominic has warm clothing when he goes.
Well, Dominic will be there all day, and the weather can be changeable. I'd advise you to make sure that Dominic has warm clothing and changes of clothing.
Where will the children go if it rains? Is everything outside?
Our location is next to Wentmount School, and we can use their sports complex when it rains. It's a big place, and as soon as there's any bad weather, we'll be inside.
That's good to know. Now, what parts of the day will Dominic be at the sports camp?
We have morning sessions, afternoon sessions, or Dominic can stay all day. What would you prefer?
I think all day. He can make lots of new friends and tire himself out. What about lunch?
You can send him with a packed lunch, or he can join in with the lunches we provide.
What sort of food do you serve?
There will be a basic starter, such as soup or salad, a solid and hot main course, and fruit for dessert.
That sounds nice and healthy.
Oh yes, it's a sports camp, and we feel that healthy food is all part of that.
So, Dominic will only need clothing with him?
Well, some sports need special equipment. For example, goalkeepers use gloves, and all players use shin pads. I expect Dominic will want to use his own.
Yes, that's true.
By the way, as Dominic's a young boy, it would be good for him to have some snacks with him for the mornings and afternoons.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. By the way, I don't know the timings of the day. At what time does it all start and end?
We start at 9:30 a.m. We don't do it any earlier, as the children are on holiday, and it's nice for them to stay in bed a little longer than their normal school days.
That's a good idea. At Dominic's age, children will stay in bed until midday if they get the chance.
I have a son that age as well, so I know what you're talking about. The end of the morning session is at 12:30, and then we start again at 1:30. The afternoon session runs to 4:30. We ask that all children are picked up by 5 o'clock, as the instructors will need to get home as well.
Before the conversation continues, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, I need to know some things about Dominic. What games does Dominic like playing?
He likes all sports. He's quite good at cricket and swimming, but his preferred sport is football.
Okay, we do plenty of all those.
Where do you swim?
Wentmount School has both indoor and outdoor pools. We do lots of swimming, both for training and just for fun. It's a great way for the children to get fit and to have a good time. Now, does Dominic have any allergies or anything else we should know about?
He's not allergic to anything. He has strong legs and he can run for ages. He was in hospital sick in December for appendicitis, but that has all cleared up now. One thing is that in the winter we went skiing and Dominic broke his arm. It's all healed now, but I think you should be aware of that.
Thank you, I've made a note of that. Now, we need to know how Dominic will go home every evening. We have a duty of care to all the children who will be with us, and we need to know whether we have to look after them until someone comes, or whether they will be going home by themselves.
The first week I'll pick him up, and then after that he can take the bus home. I expect by then he'll have lots of friends to travel with.
Good, that will be in Dominic's notes. You can change your plans, of course. Just make sure you let us know, so we can make sure he's safe at the end of each day.
I will.
Now, the last thing is for you to fill out an application form. You can see the information about all the fees at the end there. Pay the fees by bank transfer and put the reference number in the appropriate box on the application form.
What happens if the course is filled up by the time you get the form?
Don't worry about that. I've reserved Dominic a place. Just call me on the phone number on the form if you change your mind, so I can enrol someone else. I'll keep the place for you for 2 weeks.
Can I give the form in by hand to you tomorrow? I'll be shopping near here then.
That'll be fine. Just make sure the payment is done, as the reservation isn't secure until we receive that. Once we have the form, you'll get an email within a week to confirm everything.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2. Part 2.
You will hear a man and a female bank employee talking about getting a loan. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16.
Good afternoon. County and District Bank Customer Services. Can I help you?
Hello? I need to speak to someone about getting a loan, an overdraft.
Yes. Perhaps I can help you. Do you bank with us, sir?
Yes, my name is Mick O'Drew.
Sorry, sir. Your surname is?
O'Drew. Mick O'Drew. But my full name is Michael.
And can I have your account number, please, Mr. O'Drew?
Yes, it's 3926-1916.
That's fine. Now, I just need to confirm some details for security reasons. What is your address?
It's 24 Kilverton Drive. That's in Chalvey. That's Chalvey. The postcode is SA39ER.
And your telephone number?
0458 88320.
And can you tell me your date of birth, Mr. O'Drew?
Yes, it's 23rd of February 1967.
Thank you. Now, there are some gaps in your file here. I don't seem to have an address for you at work.
No, when I joined your bank, I didn't have a job.
Ah.
But I do now. I work for Calver Engineering. That's in Carbury. The address is 30 Works Yard, Carbury.
Could you repeat that?
Works Yard. WORKSYARD. It's 2 words.
Right. Thank you. Do you have a work telephone number where we can contact you, please?
Yes, it's 091279509.
7509?
No, it's 79509.
Oh, right. Thank you. How long have you been there, Mr. O'Drew?
I started in 1998.
Okay, that's fine. And can you tell me your current salary, please?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, but it's about, £18,000.
You now have some time to look at questions 17 to 20.
Now, you would like an overdraft. Do you have any other major debts?
What do you mean?
Well, are you paying a mortgage on your house?
Yes,
How much is that every month?
it's about £450.
I see. And do you have any credit cards or store cards?
Yes, I pay £45 a month in credit card charges. Oh, and about £19 a month for my store card. That's with JH only, the clothes shop.
Do you have any personal loans or hire purchase agreements?
None whatsoever.
Right, well, the loan shouldn't be a problem. I can set it up for you in the morning. I've set your limit at £250, although you can raise this to £300 if you're still having problems. Just give us a ring if you need to.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye, sir.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3. Part 3.
You will hear a conversation between two students, David and Maria, about the candidates for an election for student officers. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 23.
Hi, Maria. Have you voted yet?
Oh, hello, David. What did you say?
Have you voted yet? You know, in the student union elections.
Well, no. I mean, they've only just released the names of the final candidates. The first round elections were only held last week.
But I voted already.
Yes, but that's the first round. You know how this works, don't you?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I thought you just voted.
It's pretty simple, but it's made more complicated because this university has 4 colleges, not just one. Each college can have many candidates for each post. These are reduced to a logical number. Then the real voting takes place.
So what did I vote for last week?
That was the first round, like I said. You voted for the candidates for Peterborough College, that's all. There are also candidates from the other 3 colleges.
Oh, I see.
Well, there are 7 positions to apply for in the union, although 2 of those are dealt with later in the year. That's the president and the vice president. Anyway, each college sends 1 candidate on to the second round, so that's 4 in all for each post. In other words,
it's 20 candidates. That's quite a lot.
it isn't when you think that there are 14,000 students at this college.
No, I suppose not. Can they all vote?
Yes, part-time and full-time students. Everyone. But most don't. Only about a quarter of those eligible to actually bothered.
You now have some time to look at questions 24 to 30.
So, who are the candidates from our college?
There was a leaflet about it this week. Some of the students stood as candidates for several posts before the final ones were selected. I think Jenny de Groot is standing for Women's Officer. She wanted to be Finance Officer, but Law got that post.
She seems to be more suited to working for the female students here.
Yes, I like her. She is the best person for the job. I'm not sure I'd support Michael McCarthy for his post. He's putting up for Entertainments Officer.
Doesn't he arrange the Saturday night band for the college? And the sports events? Surely he'd be ideal. He has so much experience.
Maybe. I don't think he chooses the right kind of groups for the college. He's too way out. He's not my choice.
Who's the candidate to be overseas officer?
A Chinese student who's been here for just over a year. She's the president of the Chinese club, and she organises some interesting cultural evenings for them. She seems to be quite capable.
Do you really think so? She's in my seminar group for linguistics. Her English is quite poor, and she's so shy she never mixes with us.
Oh, there are 30 different nationalities here, so she'd need to be more sociable. Perhaps Vikram Patel would have been a better choice.
Yes, I think so. Who did you say was finance officer? Law? Charles Law? He does accountancy, so he should be able to cope with the post. He'd be responsible for a lot of money.
I've always thought he was unreliable. And didn't he fail some of his exams in the first year? Doesn't sound too competent to me.
Okay, yes, you're probably right. Who's the other person on the list?
It's Brian McKay.
Oh, McKay. He's quite a character. What position is he standing for?
He wants to be the liaison officer. The person who lets the teaching staff know about any problems the students might have. He's such a sociable person. He'd be a great communicator.
Yes, he's articulate and well organised, but he wouldn't be my first choice. Anyway, they're only the candidates from Peterborough College, so we'll have to wait for the results of the real election next week to see who actually gets each post.
Yes, we can discuss this again.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Part 4.
You will hear a lecturer giving a talk on languages. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
Thank you all for coming. Are we all here? Right, well, let's begin. This lecture, as you know, is the third in our course, Introduction to Linguistics. Today, we'll be looking at a variety of different languages, not any one specific one, and we'll be looking especially at languages which can help us understand how both language and languages evolve. Another issue that we will be exploring is the way in which languages have changed over time. These are fairly complex areas, and they have proved to be rather difficult to grasp. And there are many different theories, some of which we'll look at today. But first, I want to talk briefly about a few different ways of looking at a language. Now, the language we all speak, English, is what is called a natural language, like French, German, Greek. What do we mean by that? Well, it's a difficult term to define, because most languages have evolved naturally, except for a very few, such as Esperanto, which was invented in the 19th century. So, I suppose that what we mean by natural is a language which we consider stable, fixed, not constantly changing. Now, as we know, all languages are in fact constantly changing, so it's something of a misnomer. But let's put it another way. Natural languages are considered by us to be permanent. They didn't appear suddenly. They grew up out of other things. Now, I want to contrast these languages with two other kinds of language: Pidgin languages and Creole languages. A Pidgin language is a language which is forced into being by circumstances, usually some sort of situation where two groups meet and don't speak each other's language, and they invent an intermediary language, usually for the purpose of trade or sometimes war. An example is Tok Pisin, which is a pidgin spoken in Papua New Guinea. A Creole language, on the other hand, develops from a pidgin into a full language. This happens when the pidgin starts having native speakers, that is, people whose first language is the pidgin. This happened in the case of the French Creole spoken in New Orleans, for example. Pidgins are found all over the world, especially in areas which are, or were, once important trade routes: the Caribbean, China, Indian, the Pacific. Basically, pidgins can be identified with one or two important characteristics. They are made up of parts of the two languages spoken by the group that have met, the trading groups or whatever, and they are usually based on a simplified form of one of those languages. That is, their grammar is a less complicated version of the grammar in one language. They use vocabulary from both languages, but there are fewer words, so each word often has more than one meaning. For example, in Tok Pisin, grasp a long face means hair or beard. The pronunciation is also made simpler as pidgins lose the complex vowels of the parent languages. Creoles, on the other hand, formed when pidgins are learnt as a first language, are just as complex as so-called natural languages. They are expanded pidgins. There is often a considerable element of politicalization, as the emphasis moves from communication, which to pidgin speakers is most important, to community, which is the mark of a Creole. That is, a Creole is a community who speak a different, marginalized language. They often have to struggle to get their language recognized. As to where pidgins come from, there are basically two theories. The first claims that all pidgins are descended from a medieval trading language, what you might call the first pidgin, called Sabir. This is believed to have been based on Portuguese. It was spread as the Portuguese traders went from place to place.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.